Susan, it's so great to finally be able to get together again.
Oh, it sure is. And I really appreciate you picking up the bill.
I'm happy to. I've got the extra cash. Since we've all been driving so much more again, I've been using Get Upside, the free gas app that pays you cash back for every gallon of gas you buy.
Wait a minute. Are you saying you actually get paid cash when you buy gas with the Get Upside app?
Yes, up to 25 cents a gallon. Cash back every time I buy gas.
Does that actually add up to anything?
Some months I make $200 to $300.
Wow, that's serious extra cash. I'm downloading the free Get Upside app now.
Download the free Get Upside app now in the App Store or Google Play to save up to 25 cents a gallon when you buy gas. Use promo code PHIL for a 25 cents a gallon bonus on your first tank. That's up to 50 cents a gallon on your next fill-up. You can cash out anytime to PayPal or an e-gift card for Amazon and other brands. Just download the free Get Upside app and use promo code PHIL for a 25 cents a gallon bonus on your first tank. That's code PHIL.
Welcome to the Boneyard with Steve Robertson. As always, I am your good friend and host, Steve Robertson, here on the Hump Day edition of the Yard. Another day closer to college football. How about that? We got Alabama coming in this weekend. A lot of people think, hey, the Tide's vulnerable. You know, I submit to you they're not as good as maybe they have been. They're still an elite football team. Make no mistake about it. If you watch that A&M game, you saw one thing for sure. Alabama won't quit on you. They absolutely won't. A lot of pride in that program. Nick Saban would demand nothing less from them than their best efforts. But, hey, this is a team, too, that I think we can compete with. I really do. I'll be surprised if it is lopsided. I guess I can't really honestly say that. Because Alabama, listen, Alabama is the kind of team, if you make mistakes, they make you pay for it. So if we go out there and we don't have good ball security and we're willy-nilly with the football, yeah, we're going to get beat. Yeah, I mean, you can go ahead and write that down. And I think it kind of goes without saying, right? You can't give a team that's more talented than you in all positions, in most positions anyway. You can't give them breaks. You can't give them opportunities. So, yeah, we're going to break it down Alabama today. We're going to talk about a lot of that stuff. Looking forward to you guys being here. It'll be a 6 p.m. kickoff on ESPN. Chance for us to do some things, chance for us to kind of make a statement that we're on the incline. I know a lot of people are already assuming a loss, and I'll be honest with you, as of Wednesday, I still expect Alabama to win this football game. But I don't think that Mississippi State is going to go down there and lay down by any stretch. I think we'll go out there and compete. I think we are a much better team than we were a year ago, and I don't know that they're as good as they were a year ago. Last year they kind of schemed us up a little bit, had Devontae Smith kind of out there on some switch routes, got him paired up with a safety. That's just a mismatch. They're going to win 99 times out of 100, right? And they did. Devontae Smith had a huge game against us last year. Mac Jones, really good player. I thought we did some things early to kind of confuse them, but once they kind of got going and got a little separation, I think there was a little quit in us. So let's kind of move forward with that. I want to address a couple things, and I know many of you maybe are tuning in to hear some of these comments about some of the things that have transpired within our network. And I just want to say this. I take no glee in other people's misfortune. And my support, my undying support, is with David Johnson. I wish everybody else the absolute best. Hope they find some success in life. But the overwhelming majority of my thoughts on this relate to Dave Johnson. Dave Johnson is my friend. Dave Johnson, a guy that has overcome a lot. Dave used to be the main publisher of the 247 Ole Miss site. And so, here's the thing, too, I think it's important for people to understand. So a shakeup in our network, especially with a rival school, is not good for our business on our side, on the Genes Page side. Because how many clicks do you think that we get, from rival fans? I mean, it's just like you guys. I mean, it's like many of you, don't like Yancey Porter, but, you're always interested in what he had to say. Because if Yancey said, hey, this kid's going to go to Mississippi State, it was kind of like confirmation of maybe what me and Paul were saying. And so, yeah, it's not a great thing for us in that respect, because, we got to make up those clicks somehow. We got to make up those views somehow. And I know Dave Johnson will do a great job. Dave's a guy I really like and have always liked him. And I'll share some things with you, too, about Dave. A couple of reasons that I like him. is, when Dave was with 247 and I was with Scout, Eli Johnson was becoming a prospect. And I really, really like Eli Johnson, really do. And so Dave reached out, didn't really know me that well, just kind of reached out and said, hey, listen, I don't want things to be weird, because, Yancey and I are on competing networks, but, I want my kid to be represented over there. Would you mind interviewing Eli from time to time when he gets new offers? I'm like, Dave, I'm happy to help. Because at the end of the day, there's a young man out there with a dream, right? I mean, it's like, why should he not get the coverage that he deserved? And, of course, Mississippi State, I believe, was his first offer. I never thought we'd get it. I mean, we're not going to get a kid named Eli from Oxford, right? But that kind of brokered a friendship between Dave and I. And then, he would kind of touch base, and he goes, man, Steve, I really appreciate what you did. And I didn't do it for any other reason than the fact that it was a young man with a dream. And, of course, things worked out okay. They really did. And, a kid named Eli from Oxford's going to Ole Miss, right? And, listen, I think that is a great thing. When young people get a chance to play for their childhood favorite teams, that is incredible. And then for Dave to be able to watch that. Dave's an Ole Miss guy and is kind of unabashed about it. But to see his kid put on his school's colors and be able to go out there on the field to play, it's a great thing. I mean, it really is. And, of course, Eli left and transferred. I think he's out there in New Mexico State now. And so that was kind of uncomfortable, for some people because you got to do what's best for your kid, And so Eli felt it was best to leave the program. A lot of people were kind of critical of Dave, but I kind of get that too. I know it all comes from a good place, but I hated to see Dave go through that. But, reached out to him. I said, hey, man, it'll be okay. It'll be okay. Because, again, Dave Johnson's my friend. And so when things got crazy with me, like when I'm writing flim flam and all that sort of stuff, every once in a while David would text me and say, you know what, hey, Steve, I just want you to know I'm praying for you, man. I just want to let you know I'm praying for you. We may not agree on this issue, but I'm praying for you. I mean, he's a good guy. He is. So we got to Nashville last year for a 247 Sports Publishers Convention, and I sat next to Dave. As a matter of fact, the day we got there, there's a little pub there, and everybody's kind of gathering up, and just a little watering hole for everybody to kind of kick back, let their hair down a little bit, and then Dave calls me over, and me and Mike Nemeth go, and we sit with Dave, and Dave's been there for a couple days, obviously, with his family. Decided to kind of make it a family trip. So they spent the weekend in Nashville and went out to Broadway and everything else, had a good time. And so basically sat by Dave for the better part of 3 days. And then by the time we get to dinner the second night, Dave's just so sick, man. He couldn't come to dinner. The next thing I know, I find out Dave's in ICU in Oxford. And then people are reaching out and said, hey, Dave's got COVID. Well, at the time, if I'm not mistaken, there were 4 diagnosed cases of COVID in Nashville when we went. And there were a lot of people in hindsight that said, well, why did David go? Well, we didn't know anything then. We didn't know. It was all so brand new to us. We didn't know. And so I sat there and I shared, air with Dave for the better part of 3 days. And you get to, you're really concerned, It's like, you worry about your friend, but you think, man, is that going to be me? Am I going to be in ICU in a couple days? And, of course, nothing happens. And then all of your concern, of course, is with David, who had just an unbelievably courageous fight and survived all this. And so Dave Johnson's a winner, man. And so I'm not going to get on here and bash anybody else. Not going to do that. I just say that I support the decisions. I support Dave Johnson. I know Dave is going to kill it. I know he'll do a great job. And, I've reached out to him a couple times already to offer my support to him. And, it's a very unusual circumstance he's trying to navigate through. But I know that Dave is up for the challenge. I mean, look, goodness. Dave, in many respects, is a guy that, has kind of stared down death, man, and came through it. And so I'm sure in his mind, this seems like small potatoes, considering the things that Dave Johnson's already overcome in his life. And so, again, I'm an Eli Johnson fan. Wish him the best. I'm a Dave Johnson fan. And, again, it's good for us. We want our Ole Miss site on our network to be the market leader. That's what we want. I want it for all of our network sites. And I've got a lot of friends around this network, and we do dominate many markets. But, I want to see Dave be successful. And I hope that you guys do as well. And so I've thought a lot about what I wanted to say today because I know a lot of people are expecting certain things from me. And again, I'm some people would say at times I'm a petty and vindictive person, and there's probably some people close to me that would agree with that. But the reality of it is that we're moving forward, and again, I think Dave Johnson will do a great job. And if there's anything I can do to help Dave, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that because I want Dave to be the guy. I want Dave to be the guy that kind of dominates the Ole Miss market, and that's a very competitive market. We're kind of fortunate in our respect with the merger. We found a way to make it work, and so we don't have a lot of competition out there. But, Dave does. And so, again, anything that I can do to support Dave Johnson, we're going to do that. And my hope is that those of you that kind of keep up with the Rebels, maybe out of a little bit of a, smug rivalry curiosity, you'll click on Dave's content. Go over there and give him a read every now and again. One of the things that I've always thought that they did a really good job of is like the practice reports were a little different. They're different than what we do. And I always enjoy the detail and all that stuff too. But again, wish the absolute best for everybody involved. But again, my loyalty is to Dave Johnson and to our network partners. Speaking of great partners, Bulldog Burger Company, longtime sponsors of this show, man. Love them. Love everything about Bulldog Burger Company. It's not just a great place to eat. It's a great place to work. It's a great place for a guy's night or a girl's night out, or maybe just a family evening of extra special cuisine. Bulldog Burger Company has something for everybody on their menu. I implore you to give the more exotic hamburgers a try. I know people say, hey, Steve, I love the Bulldog. That's cool. It really is. And you know what? You can get through life just eating that Bulldog burger and feel pretty good about life. It's a great restaurant quality hamburger. But you know what? Why not spice it up a little bit? Maybe go with the Smokehouse or the Bryant or the Lauren or the Pimentology, but you got to add the bacon, right? You need that extra protein in your life anyway. Go check them out today. 3 great locations to serve you right here on University Drive in Stark Vegas, Gloucester Street there in Tupelo, and the brand new one. Lake Harbor Drive in the Flowood area. Go check them out today. Get that chocolate shake to go. And, of course, no Bulldog Burger meal is complete without ordering the spring rolls. They make you and everybody around you better looking, and we all need more of that. Bulldog Burger Company, the place where people go to meet. M-E-A-T. All right, big news out of Stark Vegas yesterday. Second-year Mississippi State women's basketball coach Nikki McCray. I hate to call it a resignation, but that eventually is what it is. There's sometimes a negative connotation with the term resignation. And so the release says that she's stepping down. And I guess that's in reality what it is. A lot of people would try to suggest, hey, there's got to be more to this story. Guys, there really isn't. And I've talked to some people initially that said, oh, yeah, there's no. I've talked to people that would know. This is a very serious situation. Nikki McCray-Penson, of course, was hired to succeed Vic Schaefer, had a very challenging year. There was a lot of optimism about the season, and there still is. But I've talked to some people close to Nikki that said, you know what, she was really excited about the year. Felt like that she had a really good locker room. Of course, there were some defections last year. Sometimes you have a little addition by subtraction. But a lot of people that maybe are looking for another story here are going to be a little bit disappointed. That's just it's just not going to be the case. And I think sometimes it's important to take things on face value. There's so much of that because I am not necessarily a trusting person anyway, So it's like when I hear things, I always think, okay, so what's the real story here, But again, I have talked to enough people that would have direct knowledge of the situation that I think I've got 100% confidence at this point that there is not more to this story. I want to read you the quote from Nikki McCray-Penson for those of you that maybe just read the headlines and didn't read the article. Over the past several weeks, I have been faced again with health concerns I had hoped were behind me. In light of these developments, I have decided to step away from coaching in order to devote my full time and energy to addressing these issues. Although I look forward to returning to coaching when I am able, I believe this is the best decision for me and my family at this time. I appreciate the support MSU has shown me, and I will be pulling for the team's success this season. John Cohen later quoted, "We appreciate the time and effort Coach McCray-Penson invested in our program and respect her decision to focus on her health and family. Throughout her time as a player and as a coach, Nikki has shown herself to be a competitor. We fully support her as she takes some time away from the game to address her health concerns." Doug Novak, an assistant coach that has some head coaching experience, will lead your program. And I think it's important to kind of understand, too, we've had some upheaval at times, with the staff, and that's not unheard of, with a new staff. I mean, go back and look at what Dan Mullen's first staff looked like. Do you remember that? Let's take a quick look at that, just because a lot of people say, well, Steve, got all these assistant coaching issues. Well, I mean, that's kind of always the case when you get a new coach, especially, a coach that comes in and then, like in Nikki's situation, she had some coaches that got promotions. That kind of saw, the ladder of advancement kind of open up for them. But here's the very first staff at Mississippi State. And most of these guys hung around for a while. But Dan Mullen's first staff, Mississippi State. Of course, you had John Hevesy, who stayed throughout. Mark Hudspeth, of course, was here, for a couple years and then took over as the head coach at Louisiana Lafayette. Last at Austin Peay. He's coaching high school football now. Great guy. Tony Hughes, of course, has come and gone a couple times. I guess the one time went to Jack State. Now he's back. Always glad to have Tony. Greg Knox, a fascinating story. Greg Knox, I guess, has now coached in the SEC for the better part of 20 years or longer, and has worked for two different coaches. How crazy is that? He was with Tuberville at Ole Miss and then at Auburn, and then he was with Dan Mullen at Mississippi State and now at Florida. So he's had 4 different SEC stops. He's worked for the same two coaches. There may not be a more loyal lieutenant in the entire Southeastern Conference than one Greg Knox, who is also 1-0 as a head football coach at the Mississippi State University. Les Kenning, a great man, really liked Les a lot. Les was around for a couple of years, eventually left. He had a daughter that was at the University of Alabama. Once she graduated, Les looked for some other opportunities. Last I heard, Les had left Kansas and was back in Texas. Maybe that's correct. I think it was South Alabama for a little while. He's bounced around a little bit. Les a great man. Scott Salek, of course, part of the Mullen Mafia, came along and then eventually was replaced by DJ Looney. Carl Torbush was your defensive coordinator, lasted just the 1 year. And then Dave Turner, who I guess is in his third stint now with Dan Mullen. So there's always some shifting, and so I don't necessarily think you can take a shot, at the fact that we had to have some adjustments on the coaching staff after 1 year and probably needed to do that anyway. Needed to be better recruiters. But Doug Novak going to take over. Doug has some experience as a head coach. I think that's one of the things to kind of understand here too. Kind of looking at his bio here as we get ready to go here. He had 17 MIAC all-conference honorees when he was at Bethel. That's where he was the head coach. Even had the most valuable player once. And so he won 65.8% of his games with a 131-68 record. Was in the playoffs 7 consecutive years. They made it to semifinals of the tournament 3 different times. Captured a share of a conference championship. And so basically is this. You've got a guy that has got some floor coaching experience that's going to take over, for now. I do not expect this to be the long-term solution. Now, that's not to say that Novak couldn't go out there and put together a great year and kind of coach his way into candidacy. That'd be a great situation, right? I mean, if Doug Novak goes out there and puts together a tournament team this year and they make a good run, why would you not give him an opportunity to stay on? And so he will lead the season. There will not be another coach hired between now and tip-off. That's the first thing people think. Where are we going to find a coach at this point? Well, we're not going to. We're going to let Doug handle the team this year, and then there will be a national exhaustive search for a new coach throughout the year. We don't have to be in any hurry, right? It's just October. The season ends in March, so we've got some lead-in time. And that's the thing about this, too. The timing is bad for this season, but the timing may ultimately be better for the coaching search in the end. And some would say, well, when we had basically the full season for baseball, and we chased Dan McDonald and some other guys out there, and maybe we didn't get who we wanted initially, but we got who we needed. That's Chris Lemonis, a guy that'll probably never have to buy a beer the rest of his life. City of Starkville, legend, got us a national championship. And so John Cohen has some time. He can be kind of deliberate with this. You don't have to rush and make a hire. That's another thing, too, is the fact that, your job's out there. There will be people that will express some interest over the course of the season. Right now, people are getting ready to go play. So right now, it's Doug Novak's charge to get this team ready to go. I continue to hear Jessica Carter is still not been reinstated. And so, at this point, we'll kind of continue to wait for that process to kind of move forward. She is still eligible from what I understand. She's still taking classes. You can take a lot of online classes and sort of stuff. I understand she still protects her eligibility and hopes to return to the team, and that'll be big too. So, but the bottom line is there has been this shocking development, and our immediate concern is with Nikki McCray-Penson and then her family. That's the concern. A basketball season and a coaching position is secondary to someone's health. And I think about, their young son, that this is a very serious situation. And so I've been very pleased with the Mississippi State fans' reaction, by and large. They've been very supportive because, listen, if you've had anybody in your family that has cancer in their background, you understand how sensitive and how serious a situation like this could be. No matter what the health issues, really are, once you've had to deal with that, number one, you've got some fight, but also, two, you've got some vulnerability. So we wish the best for Nikki McCray-Penson and her family. And listen, whether she comes back and coaches again is really secondary to the rest of the story. It absolutely is. And appreciate her contributions and efforts to Mississippi State women's basketball. And now our loyalty in many respects kind of shifts to Doug Novak. Not to say we don't care about Nikki, we absolutely do. But we need Doug to go out there and put together a good season. Really do. And these fans need a good season. We've kind of grown accustomed to being good at women's basketball, and last year was a very difficult one to swallow. And then there was all this roster attrition. And I'll be honest with you, and this is one of the things that I don't think a lot of people fully appreciate, is that Nikki kind of inherited a tough locker room. She really did. Inherited some relationships that weren't the best, and a lot of that's gone now. And I know a lot of people that know Vic Schaefer a lot better than you and I do. And Vic, a veteran coach, had to really kind of work hard to kind of hold that locker room together his final year here. And of course, we had a good year, but it's not like these issues just kind of materialized once Nikki got here. We were already dealing with some of that. And Vic, obviously a veteran coach, probably a little better equipped to handle it because of the fact that he recruited those players, knew the families, knew who he could call when he was having trouble with a player if he needed to. Nikki's kind of coming in blind, and Nikki basically had to recruit a roster to stay. And so it's like you go through all that stuff, after the coaching change, and, you try to hold your recruiting class together, try to keep Rakia Jackson and others from hitting transfer portal, so you can get on the floor. And it was a weird year. It really was. Forget wins and losses. Just, the climate of which we had to work with was just very difficult and very challenging. And so I don't know if you can judge anybody fairly, on last year. The ones that did really well, yeah, you can absolutely give them a thumbs up. But the ones that kind of struggled, you kind of get it. Best of luck to you. And so women's basketball, a new era is here. I don't know if we get T-shirts printed, for, Novak's Nasties or whatever we're going to be in a student section. But, I'm eager to kind of see how things unfold. But, again, wish the absolute best to Nikki McCray-Penson and her family as Mississippi State women's basketball moves forward and she begins to take on some of these health concerns that she has, and she has absolutely made the right decision. Without your health, you have nothing. So, Nikki, we love you, appreciate you, and support you in all of your future endeavors. All right, let's take a look at today's top 10 list. You guys like 90s rock radio, man. The numbers are great. 90s rock radio. I know a lot of you guys may have been in college here, in high school then. Some of my best friends, of course, were a big part of, kind of cultivating that scene in many respects in Mississippi. It's like, we didn't have a lot of rock radio in Mississippi. That's what makes satellite radio so great. So great. And Apple Music, all that good stuff. I can listen to whatever I want to, just about whenever I want to. Wasn't like that. I remember being a kid when they announced that Z-Rock was opening up. Right? Remember that? You have 3 Z-Rock stations in the country: L.A., New York, and Jackson, Mississippi. What? That's so random. Yeah, but that's right. We had a Z-Rock station in Mississippi. It was very great. It was wonderful. Be able to hear real rock. Because a lot of the bands that I like kind of moving up that didn't have rock music videos. You know, maybe the record company didn't believe in them. And so you could hear kind of new rock. But good rock radio was great. Still is. Even though I don't listen to a lot of terrestrial radio. You know, it's good that there's some rock stations out there. So today's Top 10 list brought to you by Close with Blair. Blair is a bit of an Americana guy, I guess. I guess that's what you would call it. You know, he's not the rocker like I am. You know, he's a little more delicate than me. But Blair is a guy that can get your loan closed. One of the top 1% closers in the country, and coffees for closers. Blair drinks a lot of it. A member of the Fairway Mortgage Group. You can visit him at closewithblair.com. He's telling me now's a great time to refi. You know, a lot of people maybe have had some mounting debt due to the COVID crisis. Maybe you missed some time. Maybe you got behind on some things. Maybe you depleted your savings. This gives you an opportunity to kind of reset things just a little bit. You can cash out. You can pay off some debt, lower your debt-to-income ratio, take advantage of some of these lower rates, because in this challenging economy, rates are going to go up. You might as well get ready for that. Rather than wait till you have to do it, maybe do it when you want to do it. Maybe you're looking to buy a house, maybe you're looking for a second mortgage. Blair can help every bit of that. And maybe you're not ready to buy a house, but he can help get you ready. Visit him at closewithblair.com. That's closewithblair, BLAIR.com. And by being a loyal Boneyard listener, we're going to save you some money. We're going to save you some money because Blair's going to pay for your appraisal. If you just mention to him, hey, Blair, I heard about you on the Boneyard. And many of you are thinking, you know what, hey, Steve, I don't know when's the best time to do it. Talk to Blair about that, right? He's an honest and ethical person. He'll tell you, hey, listen, maybe let's wait a couple months until you get this bill paid down. Maybe you get this. Maybe you can buy a house. A lot of people are scared to ask, and you get your hopes up, right? You think, no, I don't really. No, you owe it to yourself. You owe it to your family. Give Blair a call today, 601-500-2344. 601-500-2344. If you can't remember that, just remember closewithblair.com. Closewithblair.com. Today's top 10 list is the Gin Blossoms. How about that for you 90s rockers? You like the Bush list? You like the Goo Goo Dolls? So now I'm giving you the Gin Blossoms. Now, there are a couple things I want to say about the Gin Blossoms. I have, I guess in some ways, kind of an emotional or spiritual connection to this band because of Doug Hopkins. Doug Hopkins was an addict, was a flaming alcoholic, was a guy that battled depression much of his life, and he was an absolute genius of a songwriter. And I'm speaking about him in past tense because he killed himself. It's a really, really sad situation. One of the best things I have ever read is this story called Jesus of Suburbia. You can Google it. When I read that, sometimes I think maybe I should go back and sell insurance or something. Maybe I should cut my hair and go get another job. Because the writing is so great, so emotional. It elicits all this emotion from me. I respond to it. And it's the Doug Hopkins story. And I understand now that they're actually filming a documentary about it. I don't know if it's going to be like a dramatized movie or just like the actual footage or whatever. But Doug Hopkins was the driving force behind the Gin Blossoms. Now, obviously, they had some success, but here's the thing. It's like, oh man, I remember that first Gin Blossoms album. I remember how great it was. And then they had one or two hits after that, but they could just kind of, you don't hear about them anymore. What's because Doug Hopkins is dead? Because Doug Hopkins was a primary songwriter, and he was a bit of a savant when it came to this stuff. He was a guy that understood composition. He could play multiple instruments, and he would get these ideas in his head. Like people would say, hey, we're going to go over to Doug's and have a couple drinks. And they would get there, and he would be just frenetically kind of working through something. Like his mind was working faster than his fingers could play. And he would think, oh, if we do this, we add this. And they said that they'd sit there and drink a couple of cold beers, and then he would be just so into what he was doing, he couldn't stop. He just was one of those kind of people that this is how he processed his pain. This is what he did to kind of tell who he was. And so that second album, the first album, Dusted, was basically kind of an independent release. And when they released New Miserable Experience, which is 4 times platinum, it's basically a lot of those songs. They were kind of rough cut on the first album. So it's the first album. A lot of those tracks make it to the second album because they signed with A&M Records. All right, so here are my top 10 Jim Blossom songs. And most of them are from New Miserable Experience. Number 10 is actually the song that got me into the Jim Blossoms. We talk about first favorites. This would be my first favorite Jim Blossom song. It's Hold Me Down. Hold Me Down. And it's basically just kind of going through life, and there's a party or whatever, and things are getting out of hand. And it's like, hey, when things are starting to get a little reckless and wild, you better hold me down, because I'm the kind of person that's going to get involved in all that. Number 9, a really, really cool song. It's got a really cool vibe to it. Maybe it's because I lived some time in Louisiana, but it's called the Cajun Song. And it's basically, another one of these rock radio great little love songs, and then they kind of add a little Cajun flair to it. That's the cool thing about it. They add that accordion to it. And then down the bayou, they love this one. Number 8, As Long As It Matters. This is a song, I don't think Doug Hopkins had anything to do with this one. This one came a little bit later in the catalog. But kind of in that same vein. It's missing some of the Doug isms, but it is kind of true to the Jim Blossom's original sound. Number 6, a one that had nothing to do with Doug Hopkins. Pretty cool track called, I think I missed it. Number 7, let's go back a little bit. This is off the second album, Congratulations, I'm Sorry. It's Follow You Down. Number 7. You've heard that one, I'm sure. It was on the radio a lot. Anywhere you go, I'll follow you down. Number 6, this is one a little bit deeper in the catalog. It's Miss Disarray. We all know her, right? We all do. Probably friends with her. Maybe married to her. Maybe used to be married to her. We all know Miss Disarray. Number 5, back to the New Miserable Experience. It's Allison Rhode. One of my great friends tells me that when he heard the New Miserable Experience album, and this is one of the favorite songs on there, this one in 29, that it kind of pulled him back into modern rock. He's like, I'd kind of been listening to all my older stuff, and then the New Miserable Experience kind of got me into new alternative radio. And that's kind of the case with this band. They were a mainstream success, but they were, at the end of the day, they were alternative rock in their genesis. And then next thing you know, the genius of Doug Hopkins was known, and they were everywhere. Number 4, very, very, very introspective and personal song, Until I Fall Away. That's number 4 on your list. Again, off that first album. And it's just one of those songs, too. The vocals are great, but lyrically, it's one of the best songs in the catalog. I think you'll dig that one. Number 3, a song actually from the Empire Records soundtrack that kind of came in between album cycles. It did appear on Congratulations, I'm Sorry. Again, another big radio hit for them. And really, I guess the last big charting hit for them that Doug Hopkins didn't actually play on. And that's Till I Hear It From You. Till I Hear It From You. Okay, so we're at the top 2. Now, this, I know in many respects, some people are going to think, Steve, you got the order wrong. And that's okay. You can have your own list. Your list would be wrong, but you're welcome to your list. I know a lot of people say, you know what, Steve? If there is a quintessential Jim Blossom song, it's got to be Head Jealousy. But that's number 2 on my list. It's number 2. I love it. And what's interesting, too, is because I was so fascinated with Doug Hopkins. And maybe it's because I'm an addict, and I'm in recovery and have been now for nearly 30 years. But a lot of this kind of happened, when I was early in recovery. And I was totally obsessed. Like, how could this guy be so successful and living his dreams and everything going great for him? How could he be so sad? I mean, how does that happen? It kind of disenfranchises you a little bit, because like when you're struggling and, you're waiting tables or whatever, and, you're a month-to-month guy, you're just trying to find a way to get the rent paid. And if that means you got to eat bacon, tomato sandwiches for 2 or 3 days, what you got to do. And that's where I was in life. I was happy, but that's where I was. But I knew that I was working towards something bigger and better. And you think, here this guy is, had finally achieved his dream. And how is he so sad? And it makes you kind of question life a little bit. It's like, man, if you work and work and work and you get your big break, and it still doesn't make you happy. And it tells me that, happiness doesn't come from external things. I mean, happiness comes in small doses when it's reliant on other people, places, and things. I got to be content with who I am, and that's what Doug Hopkins really struggled with. Doug always thought he was a fraud, even though he was an absolute genius. He thought in his mind he was a fraud, and that's why he worked as hard as he did. And so when he wrote the song Hey Jealousy, it was actually about the sister of a bandmate that he had this huge crush on. And he had a chance with her one time and he blew it. And so a lot of this stuff, he lived. It wasn't just, hey, this is catchy, let's write lyrics to this. This is stuff that he lived. And so basically the New Miserable Experience, ironically enough, is basically an autobiography of Doug Hopkins' life. But number one for me is Found Out About You. Found Out About You to me is a classic 90s song. It's one of those songs even now when I hear that opening guitar, he just kind of starts in, it's by itself, it's just haunting to me. And maybe it's because Doug is gone, but also too, it's like at some point we've all been through that. I found out about you. You're not who I thought you were. I loved you and I gave you my heart, and it's like that part when he says, I write your name, drive past your house. Your boyfriend's over, I watch the light go out. It's like, as sad as that is, how beautiful is that writing? It's like, how authentic is that? And that's what I think Doug Hopkins was great, is he was able to process his pain to the point that he could put it to song. Sadly, it didn't do enough to heal him. And I don't want to be all sad today, but I want to celebrate Doug Hopkins' genius, and I want you to listen to some Jim Blossoms today. And I'll be honest with you, I have a difficult time listening to Jim Blossoms without Doug Hopkins. And so here's the thing that I want to tell you about Doug, a couple of things, just because maybe you don't know a lot about the Jim Blossoms. And, of course, Jim Blossoms, of course, are, a symptom of alcoholism, ironically enough. But Doug Hopkins was a self-saboteur. And so they had this big record company showcase one time. There were going to be like two or three different bands, two or three different labels there. They were playing for all these labels and execs. They're about to get signed. And Doug was always afraid of if life changes, how do I handle a change? And so they get out in all their gears in their van, they get ready to leave and the van won't start. And so they missed the showcase. Pretty crazy. And so Doug's big goal in life was to have a gold record. And so he got his gold record. And of course the Jim Blossoms and A&M Records and management had basically swindled Doug Hopkins out of his royalties. They owed him about $15,000. I think that's right, $20,000. And they withheld that until he agreed to sign his future royalties over to his replacement in the band. And so it's like these guys are making all this money on his misery and his emotions, and now he's not going to share in the profits. And that's what kind of put him off the deep end. And I understand shortly after he got his gold record, he destroyed the gold record. Just completely destroyed it. It was his lifelong dream to have that as a songwriter, and he finally gets it, and he destroys it, and then he shoots himself. And he had gone to rehab, tried to check in, and then just kind of pulled out. And if you read Jesus of Suburbia, you'll get a lot of details kind of about his life and kind of about the end. And I'm looking forward to the movie coming out, whether it be on Netflix or whatever. I really want to see it. I actually reached out to Doug Hopkins' sister a few years ago, found her on social media, and just kind of sent her letters about what Doug means to me and, kind of the profound impact he had on my life, because he made me realize that happiness is not always promised. It's like we can chase and find all these great things in life, and at the end of the day, it's like when you achieve it, well, there you are. It's like wherever you go, there you are. And so sent her this nice message, and she was so kind enough to respond, and I felt like I owed it to them, to let her know that all these years later that Doug Hopkins' music still matters. And I'm sure there are a lot of other fans that reach out and do that sort of stuff. But that's a Jim Blossoms list. I'll probably jam Jim Blossoms for a couple days now. As soon as we hang up today, I'll probably put on Found Out About You. It's a crazy good song. If you don't know the Jim Blossoms, let me encourage you to listen to that. This is kind of post-college music for me, for sure. But this was extremely popular on college radio, and then, of course, they exploded and crossed into the mainstream. And I often wonder, too, how Doug would have handled that aspect of it, too. He was kind of a loner in the crowd. So There you go, your Jim Blossom's Top 10. If you have an idea for the Top 10 list, reach out and let me know. I'm happy to consider it. You can find all the Spotify list at Dogmatic67. That's DAWGMATIC. If you don't do Spotify, Izzy Mandelbaum, of course, is taking these great lists and putting them on iTunes for you, on Apple Music. So wherever you get music, you can get our Top 10 list. I tweet those out and share them on Facebook as well. Maybe give those guys a follow, kind of save you a little guesswork later instead of having to go look for it. But again, happy to do this one. I've been thinking about this one for a while, about what the order would be. Wanted to go back and listen to some of the more recent albums, and I'll be honest with you, it's just not the same. It's not the same without Doug Hopkins, and it's sad and unfortunate that someone that talented is no longer with us. So all the best to Doug Hopkins' family and fans out there around the world. All right, next segment of the show brought to you by Campus Bookmart. That's right, campusbookmart.net. Long-time sponsors of this show, man, but long-time contributors to the Mississippi State family. Great place to find your Mississippi State merchandise, whether you're in town or online. You can find exactly what you need at Campus Bookmart. Go by and see Stan and Man, Miss Kathy Brown, the lovely, talented Susie, Candy, the whole crew there. We treat you like family because in their minds you are family. If you can't make it to town to see their smiling faces, let me encourage you. Visit them on the World Wide Web at campusbookmart.net. And by being a loyal Boneyard listener, we're going to save you a little cash. That's what we do, right? That's the benefit of the show. The things you want, you get a little bit cheaper. Go to campusbookmart.net. Use promo code BSR, which stands for Beautiful Steve Robertson. That's right. That's easy to remember. And that'll get you free shipping on all orders over $50. And you know, when you're making those Christmas orders, it's kind of nice to have that free shipping. They're happy to do it for you. And they appreciate your support of the Boneyard. Outfit your family in the latest in maroon and white fashions at campusbookmart.net. Again, promo code BSR. Free shipping on all orders over $50. And you order less than $50, absolutely incomplete. All right, let's look at Alabama. And as we mentioned, it's a great team. I mean, listen, nobody's saying they're not, right? I mean, we're saying they may be a little bit vulnerable. They're still an elite team. We're still going to have to go out there and play our best game of the year to win this game. It's that simple. Alabama scoring just over 44 points a game, doubling up their opponents, allowing just 22. Now, they've had some conference games on the road, been a lot more competitive than that. We're going to get to that a little bit later. 266 points scored this year, averaging 161.7 yards a game on the ground. That's pretty stout, right? Maybe not what they have been, though. Maybe not what they have been running, but we've been pretty good against the run, too. We will put the game in the hands of your quarterback and hopefully make you a little one-dimensional. Allowing just over 109 yards per game on the ground, not really our sort of thing, right? Passing-wise, Alabama's been good, averaging over 310 yards per game, nearly 311. Bryce Young certainly living up to his preseason billing. They're giving up 195 yards a game. I suspect we'll do better than that. 21 touchdowns through the air, they've allowed just 9. They're really good in the red zone, for sure. Offensively, 472 yards a game, but giving up over 300. That hadn't always been the case at Alabama. Kick returns, they're pretty decent there, averaging 26.33, allowing 20.85, nearly 21. And so what that tells me is that on occasion, you get a chance to bring it out. Matter of fact, 13 times this year, opponents have attempted a kick return against the University of Alabama. So maybe that allows Tulu to get loose a little bit. Maybe. And sometimes I think we only need 1 or 2 of those, right? If we could get 1, get us in plus field position. Because, you know, we all know what Tulu can do. We've seen it. It's weird. I mean, it's like you give the guy a chance, and the guy apparently can just have his vision of the field, his ability to see and set up blocks is just unlike what the average player is. That's a real weapon for us. Punt returns, they're averaging just over 10 yards per return and allowing just over 5, nearly 6. It's pretty crazy to think about that, too. All right, looking at the penalties, and that's been a real issue for Alabama this year. And that's the thing that I think probably keeps Nick Saban up at night. 75 yards a game in penalties. They've been flagged 48 times this year. The opponent's just 39. That's a lot of penalties, for an elite program. So that's something to watch too. They will give you a first down every now and again. Time of possession, kind of a meaningless stat these days. 32.57 per game for them. Been really good on third down, 51%. 42 of 82 on third down. Fourth down conversion, 7 of 9. So on possession plays, Alabama more.
Susan, it's so great to finally be able to get together again.
Oh, it sure is. And I really appreciate you picking up the bill.
I'm happy to. I've got the extra cash. Since we've all been driving so much more again, I've been using Get Upside, the free gas app that pays you cash back for every gallon of gas you buy.
Wait a minute. Are you saying you actually get paid cash when you buy gas with the Get Upside app?
Yes, up to 25 cents a gallon, cash back every time I buy gas.
Does that actually add up to anything?
Some months I make $200 to $300.
Wow, that's serious extra cash. I'm downloading the free Get Upside app now.
Download the free Get Upside app now in the App Store or Google Play to save up to 25 cents a gallon when you buy gas. Use promo code PHIL for a 25 cents a gallon bonus on your first tank. That's up to 50 cents a gallon on your next fill-up. You can cash out anytime to PayPal or an e-gift card for Amazon and other brands. Just download the free Get Upside app and use promo code PHIL for a 25 cents a gallon bonus on your first tank. That's code PHIL.
Times or not, is going to convert. And a lot of that's a product of the running game. That gets you in a third and short. They get behind that big offensive line, and they got great running backs. They always do. They're Alabama, right? Third down conversions against, they're holding opponents to 33.7%. You say, well, Steve, that sounds pretty good. And in many respects that it is. But here's the thing. Mississippi State, 13th in the country in defensive third down percentage. Alabama, just to put that in perspective, 42nd. 42nd. So, yeah, they're pretty good on third down. We're elite on third down. Thought you'd find that kind of interesting today as we kind of work through this. So, some interesting numbers to kind of look at here for sure. Looking at a couple other things, too, that I think are rather interesting, too, is, we talk about third down, on offense. Alabama's 11th in the country. Ironically, do you know who's number one? I bet you don't. I didn't. It's Coastal Carolina. Nearly 59% on third down. That's winning football, especially in their league. Alabama actually second in the SEC, third down conversions. Trails only Mizzou. But you weren't expecting to hear that. You were thinking it's probably going to be Georgia. They're 17th. Let's look at some other stuff here with Alabama too. We talk about the penalties. Penalties per game, that sort of stuff. We've always kind of expect Alabama to kind of set the standard, and they do in many respects. Mississippi State, among the worst teams in the country, being penalized 124th. The last place team, Ole Miss, 130. Alabama, 113. So good chance you're going to see some handkerchiefs this weekend. So while they may give us some first downs, we'll cost ourselves some too. So we got to clean that up. We got to play clean. But it's rare to see Alabama in that kind of discussion, as far as like committing penalties, that sort of stuff. It's just, it's just not one of those things that are, typical for a Nick Saban coach team. Those are things you look at and you begin to kind of ask yourself a little bit. Say, what's happening in Alabama? And again, they're not what they have been. They're still very good. Passing offense this year, Mississippi State 5th in the country, 372 yards a game, and we should. That's kind of who we are, right? That's our identity now. Alabama not doing bad either. They're 17th in the country, just over 310 yards, as I mentioned earlier. So we're going to probably see a longer game because the clock's not going to be running quite as much. We're going to be out there, probably for a while. So go ahead and kind of prepare for that. I'm excited about it. I know you guys are as well. But this is not, again, an unbeatable Alabama team. Let's look at some of the individual numbers. Brian Robinson has been really, really good for Alabama. I really like him a lot. The guy looks like a pro. sets up his blocks well, navigates between the tackles well, and that's one of the more difficult things for a young back because there's this temptation to bounce everything outside. Robinson is comfortable with the rigors of interior play. Averaging 105 yards per game, averaging just 5 yards, 0.4 per carry, which, 2 of those get you first down, but it's not a lot of big plays, and that's kind of the point I'm making. His long run this year is just 24 yards, 6 touchdowns, but he is just so efficient that his numbers are not propped up by big plays. This is a guy that just consistently falls forward. Just, 97 carries this year, and he's only lost 11 yards. So this is a guy that's going to typically fall forward. Another well-coached, very talented back. But he's the guy. He's the guy. They got some other guys that kind of do by committee to try to give him a little bit of rest. But B-Rob, as they call him, number 4, he is the straw that stirs the drink in the running game. Bryce Young played in all 6 games, started all 6. 136 of 196, thrown just 3 interceptions, which is more than Will Rogers. But he's right at 70%, 69.39%. And of course, Will Rogers ahead of him in that thing too. 1,734 yards, 20 touchdowns, along a 94, averaging 289 yards a game. Bryce Young, he's a great athlete, but he's not a true dual threat type guy. He's not a guy that's really going to tuck it and go very often. Now, he will, like on possession plays. I mean, if you give him the opportunity to run and things break down, he is a guy that can make you pay. But he's not a guy that's going to take it, 50, 60 yards. He'll get the first down, get out of bounds. And there's really not a lot of depth behind him. I think it's kind of important to understand that too. It's like this is a guy too. I mean, there's just not much experience behind him. There's not a lot of depth behind him. Alabama goes out and signs big quarterbacks every year, but the bottom line is that this is their guy, much like Will Rogers is our guy, right? Bryce Young's throwing mechanics are a little different. The ball sometimes comes out nose down, and as a result, especially on slants and things like that, you can watch him at times throw the ball into the ground instead of throwing it, with good ball placement where his receiver can catch it. A lot of times the receivers have to kind of bail him out and go down, put their hands underneath it, and make a difficult catch. That's something in time that I'm sure they'll kind of figure out. Bill O'Brien and those guys will correct, but you will see that a lot with him. The ball comes out of his hand a little different. Now, the deeper throws, he's great at those. But the underneath stuff, sometimes I don't know if he's just trying to muscle it up too much and mechanics break down a little bit, but you'll notice that when you watch Alabama. Receiving, Jameson Williams, really like him a lot. He seems to be kind of that next guy for them. He's the one that caught the touchdown last week when Alabama wasn't set and A&M didn't have anybody out there to cover him. That big touchdown late. Jameson Williams also had the 2-point conversion. 27 grabs this year for 510 yards. He is a big play receiver. Does have a 94-yard touchdown to his credit, 5 touchdowns on the year, averaging 85 a game. John Machi is a guy that I have always liked. Now, last year he was a guy at times that kind of struggled with drops. He was a guy, too, that was probably second or third receiver on the team. He's basically the one now. He appears to be their primary option, and it seems like he's always open. And it kind of drives you crazy. It's like, is it really that kid again? Yeah, it's John Machi again. Just another guy that has developed and kind of bought into what they're doing at Alabama and is beginning to yield the benefits from it. The leading pass catcher, 34 grabs on the year, 363 yards, not a lot of ton of run after the catch. Just averaging 60.5 yards per game at a long of 41. So you begin to back that out, and that puts him right at 320. So it's 33 grabs for 320. So he's right there around 10, 11 yards per reception. So, but he is more than just a possession receiver. Slade Bolden is a guy, too, that I think they're kind of waiting for him to take off. Had some big catches last year. Had some big catches against us. Just 15 grabs this year. 15, just a 1 touchdown. Jojo Earl is a guy that I know they're expecting some big things from as well. He had a couple of good catches against Ole Miss, too. Just 12 grabs on the year. But it's pretty well distributed. You've got 7 or 8 guys with double-digit receptions, but Williams and Machi are the guys. Those are the guys you're really going to have to pay special attention to. Those are the guys that, when they need a play, that's who they're going to dial up. I don't think there's any question about that. All right, let's look at some defensive numbers here. you always expect Alabama to be elite defensively. I mean, it's just kind of their calling card, right? I mean, what we have known by and large, through our years is that Alabama is going to run the football. They're going to stop the run. They're going to play big, physical brand of football, and they're going to do their best to kind of shut you down, swallow you up. This Alabama defense is really good, but it's not what it has been. And I've said that several times today. So just to kind of put in perspective here, Alabama has given up 300.7 yards per game, which is good for 16th nationally. And we talk about, Alabama and Georgia may be the best two teams. Well, let this stat kind of marinate with you for a second. Georgia leads the nation, total defense, 201 yards. So we're talking nearly 100 yards difference between Alabama and Georgia. That's a pretty expansive gap. Pretty crazy to think about that, really. Especially with Alabama being in the top 20 in defense. Those are things you look at and you kind of say, you know what? Maybe we can score a little bit. Now, to let you know, too, well, Steve, where are we? We're 29th, allowing 318 yards. So, we're right there. And a lot of people question at the beginning of the year, will State have a top 25 defense? I think the answer to that question is yeah. I really do. I think once we get through this week, I think we'll have a lot better perspective on that. But here's the deal. I don't really care about the stats, even though they're kind of a precursor to kind of predicting games, that sort of stuff. I just want to go win the ball games. You know what I'm saying? And it'd be nice to shut people out and kind of slow them down, and kind of exert your will a little bit. But I'd rather be 8-4 and be 40th in defense than be 10th in defense and be 5-7. And I know you all feel the same way. But I think it's interesting just to kind of look at the numbers and kind of compare and kind of see where we are and how we're doing. Looking at these defensive numbers too, it's like Kentucky right there at number 18. Probably not a big surprise because Stoops is a defensive-minded coach. But they may be better than we expect. They're better than I expected, I'll admit that. Florida right there with Mississippi State, 28th in the country, right at 317 yards per game. Auburn right there at 32. Arkansas there at 39. Tennessee at 45. Listen, you want another difference in that Tennessee-Ole Miss game this weekend? It's going to be defense because Tennessee's better on defense than Ole Miss is. Let's go ahead and get ready for that. Go ahead and preview that for you. I'm picking Tennessee to win that game. A&M 53rd in the country in total defense. Let me see here. LSU 73rd, man. And big news out of Baton Rouge. Eli Ricks, starting corner, out for the year. So Stingley down. They lose a safety, and now Ricks. And they've lost one of their best edge rushers. I mean, the losses just continue to mount for that LSU defense. We really need them to beat some people that will help us in bowl positioning. We got to take care of ourselves, but it'd be nice if we could get a little help and LSU could upset somebody or two along the way. Total defense, Ole Miss, number 100. 100. There's 130 Division I teams. But believe it or not, there are some teams that are worse than Ole Miss. That's right. Vanderbilt, 114th. In case you're wondering, too, just for a little trivia question for you, Texas, 106th. How about that? Texas. Goodness gracious. Memphis, 116. Still smart, so we lost that ball game. Your last place defense in the country, Arkansas State, 130, allowing 584 yards per game. That's right. 584. The worst in the SEC, Mizzou at 128. And we see it every week. Every time we preview the games, I say, hey, man, Missouri's got a shot to win. And then the defense goes and lays an egg. All right, let's get back to some of these defensive numbers for Alabama. I chased that rabbit trail long enough. I look at these numbers sometimes. It's interesting to me. All right, Henry Toatoa leading the Crimson Tide with 41 tackles. That's a former Tennessee linebacker that transferred. And a lot of people said there's no chance the SEC is going to allow interconference transfers without sitting a year. And then everybody else in the Power 5 did. And if the SEC didn't follow suit, basically it would lead to SEC players leaving the league and playing immediately at other conferences. And so you simply couldn't do that. So they went along. One of the rare things where the SEC kind of followed a leader there. Anderson Jr., 39 tackles, number 31 for them, 11 TFLs. That's a big number right there. Even though we're only 6 games into the season, that leads the Alabama team. They got 42 tackles for loss as a defense. They've allowed 36. Not a big disparity there between what's happening. But maybe that means some offensive line play. Maybe it means this Alabama defensive front's not as good as it has been. Christian Harris, 31 total tackles, also 5 tackles for loss. They got some dudes. They always do. Byron Young from West Jones High School. You're familiar with Byron. Played in all 6 games. Got 17 tackles on the year, 5.5 TFLs, got a sack, and a quarterback hurry. So, yeah, he's played. He's in a rotation there. Guy's going to be a pro someday, for sure. Interceptions, DeMarco Helms leads the team with 2 picks in 6 games played. Also has 37 tackles. Pretty good numbers there. Jalen Armour Davis has 3 pass breakups to lead the team, also with a pick to his credit. Jalen Moody has an interception. Kool-Aid, that's right. That's what everybody calls him, Kool-Aid. A lot of people said that he was going to end up at LSU. They were wrong. He's at Alabama playing well. Now, Malachi Moore was ejected last week in the first quarter for targeting. He will be available. A lot of people wondered about that and say, hey, Steve, any of those targeting guys going to be back? I only remember one. And the way that thing works is you only have to sit out the half. Now, of course, if it occurs in the second half, you miss the first half of the next game. But yeah, so they'll be full strength. There's not any question about that. But this is a team, too, that they want to get after the quarterback, but the pass rush has not been what it has been. Would you believe that Alabama's opponents have sacked them more than Alabama has sacked the opponent? Alabama 13 sacks on the year, their opponents 14. When's the last time you saw that happen? So Federian Mathis, who is a monster, 22 tackles, 3.5 sacks to lead the team. And so outside of Mathis and Anderson, nobody has more than 1 sack. And so that's been something they have talked about. The media has asked Saban about, what do you got to do to generate more pass rush? So those are things that they're talking about over there. Nick Saban did not have a lot to say about Mississippi State earlier in the week. I actually transcribed that press conference, and one of the questions I guess Cecil Hurd had asked was about, pass rush. It's like when you're chasing a quarterback, the wear and tear it takes on a defensive line over the course of the ball game. And Saban admits you're exerting a lot more energy, when you're chasing the quarterback rather than playing against a run. Those plays take longer. It requires more of a physical fitness commitment. So those are the things, hopefully, if we get into the fourth quarter, that maybe we're the ones that win that battle in that respect. We can keep Will Riders upright. I think we got a good chance to keep this game competitive, maybe even win the ball game. We need Alabama to help us a little bit, though. I mean, let's be honest. Yeah, we'd all love to beat Alabama. We haven't beat them since 2007. Kind of tired of wearing that, And so, yeah, we can beat them. We're at home. And I think that's the key in many respects. Number one, we're a better football team. And number two, I think in some respects they have kind of come back a little closer to the pack. That's not to say they won't be in the playoff. They may win out, And then we could see Alabama and Georgia play twice this year. I don't think Alabama's on Georgia's level. Not yet. But here's what they've done so far this year. They beat an overrated Miami team 44-13 in week 1. They beat Mercer 48-14, and it was a bit of a tussle in the first half. Then they go on the road. Of course, Miami was in Atlanta, but a true road environment. The first time they go to Florida, jump all over Florida, take their foot off the gas, and Mullen and company had a chance for a 2-point conversion to tie it late and couldn't get it done. But Alabama wins 31-29. They beat up Southern Miss 63-14. They jump all over Ole Miss and led by 35-0 in the third quarter and then cruise to a 42-21 win at home. And then they go on the road here and then they lose by 3 to A&M. Now that win's obviously been well documented, since then. But, here, they've had 2 true road games that have been decided by a total of 5 points. The 31-29 win at Alabama and the 41-38 loss at A&M. So I don't know, the pathology behind those games, but the one thing it looks at is road games. These are road games. So that's where you come in. If you are on the fence about coming to this game, come to the game. Come to the game. I know a lot of people say, well, Steve, I want to see us win. Yeah, I do too. I want to see us win too. But I think you could be a factor in this ball game. If you looked at what happened at Kyle Field last weekend, and again, Alabama didn't quit. But late in that ball game, when A&M needed a lift, the 12th man gave it to them. They did. They were great. I was there 2 weeks ago. It was the best atmosphere I'd ever experienced at Kyle Field in 3 trips. It was outstanding. And so if that is what bothers Alabama a little bit, then we need you to do your part. We need you to get in the car, bring your cowbells, and yell like H-E-L-L and help this team, because we need every advantage we can get. We're not as talented as them. You could argue maybe we're not as well coached as them. Saban and them have kind of built the football factory over there, and so you get these well-oiled machines run off the line up there. And so to kind of, bridge that gap a little bit, we need you. Need you to come to the ball game. Come be a part of this. There are tickets still available through the Mississippi State ticket office. A lot of people want to get into Facebook groups and that kind of stuff and get on StubHub. Check the state ticket office first. Before you go spend some money and run the risk of overpaying for tickets, you can buy them at face value to the Mississippi State ticket office. Now, it may not be the sections that you want, and then you may have to depend on a third-party ticket vendor for that. But always check the Mississippi State ticket office first to get guaranteed tickets for sure, right? And also, too, to pay face value. We had a situation in Omaha where we went through StubHub to get my oldest son and his wife and my granddaughter tickets to Omaha. So they're guaranteed, right? Well, they get to the gate and there's some kind of problem because somebody sent the tickets incorrectly. And so, they're sitting there at the gate at Omaha, couldn't get in, so they gave them their money back, which is great, but it's not sufficient. It's just part of one of those things that happens in life. Now, they made the rest of the weekend okay. They're able to attend the finals and watch Mississippi State win a national championship, and, of course, they missed the Vanderbilt win. And if you had to miss one of those 3 games, that's the one you want to miss. But so I say that to say, well, Steve, the tickets from StubHub and people like that are guaranteed. Yes, they are. But they're not guaranteed to get you in the building if there's a problem. But if you buy a ticket to the Mississippi State ticket office and you have a problem, you can go right up there to the ticket window, and Mike Ritchie and his staff will take care of you. You buy it through a third-party vendor, you're on your own. And so, again, whenever possible, buy through the Mississippi State ticket office. And that's not just me, sitting here shilling for Mississippi State. That's me trying to help protect my fellow Bulldog fans. I don't want you to be inconvenienced. Just get your tickets and be able to roll. I think it's important to kind of understand that. There's sometimes convenience, that we pay for a little convenience and it leads to some inconvenience. If you drove all that way to a ball game and couldn't get in the gate and they say, okay, well, we'll just give you your money back. Well, what about the money for my gas and the meals and my time, my aggravation, and the fact that I got to go find some water and hole to watch a ball game that I cared enough about to get in the car for? You're not going to get that money back. So just be smart about this. Be smart. It's important to kind of understand how all that works. Life is difficult sometimes, and sometimes it's more difficult than it has to be. So don't give yourself any unnecessary inconvenience when you could just get tickets through the Health State ticket office. Absolutely the best way to go. Anytime that I get ready to buy tickets from anybody, I don't immediately go get on StubHub. First thing I do is go to the venue directly to save myself some money and be sure that if there's a problem, I can get it handled on site when I get there. Right? Now, a couple of things I think it's important to know. I want to revisit this because it's been a while since we've had a home game. Right? And we kind of get out of the habit. Please have your tickets already pulled up when you get in line to be scanned. Right? Let's not wait till we get there. And so, again, it's been a while, so we want the line to move. And they're doing a pretty good job. I think all things considered, I expected more delays. It's been pretty good. Now, if we wait till 10 minutes before the game, we're going to wait out in the junction as long as we possibly can. There's not an express lane, okay? There's not. It's just not. Oh, well, I'm Jim. This is Jim's line. No, you got to go through everybody else. And it's like, oh, my gosh, I want to get in the game. Well, give yourself a little time to avoid the bottleneck, right? Take some personal responsibility here. We'll be okay. But have your tickets ready to be scanned when you go through. Go ahead and get that ready so it doesn't slow things down. There's a lot of things that are on that list of impermissible items. Go ahead and check that at healthstate.com/game day. I believe that's correct. and you can see those banned items, and you don't have to worry about bringing those things and having to go back to the car, right? Cowbells are allowed. Now, there have been some more of the stadium seats installed. If you are one of those people that will get your new stadium seat for this ball game, you should have already gotten an email, or you should get one shortly. If you haven't gotten the email, then your stadium seat hadn't been installed. So it's important to kind of understand that too. We don't want you to have to lug all your old seats up there. Like if you're bringing your own thing and you get there and you're like, oh, I wish I'd known. I wouldn't have killed myself dragging this thing up here. Well, if you're notified by email, you won't have to deal with that, right? Another thing too, because we do expect near capacity crowd this weekend, do some pre-planning when it comes to parking. Because every time there's going to be a lot of people that are coming to the ball game, and maybe it's their first game. Maybe it's their first game in a long time. Maybe their parking lot has changed. Those event management group people that do a great job for us, they do. They don't know where you need to park. And so when you stop, they're going to have to get on a radio and say, hey, where is lot so-and-so? And there are some people that are veterans, have been around a long time, they'll know. But by and large, those people don't know. And it's not because they're incompetent. It's just, hey, this is my job here. I got to sit here and watch this deal and check the passes and let the people in that have, lot C or whatever. And that's the end of my job. My job is not to direct traffic. And so, again, let's take a little personal accountability. Know where you got to be. Leave early. Protect yourself. Protect the people in your car with you. Because if you're like me, I hate sitting still. Whether it be at a restaurant, whether it be in a line, whether it be in the car. I'm an impatient person. I am. I like to get out and make things happen. But it infuriates me when I have to sit and sit and sit and sit. And so I don't want to be that guy that's holding up a line for you guys. So let's do a little advanced scouting. Double check where you're supposed to park. And for many of you, you're like, hey, Steve, I'm here all the time. I'm good. Thank you. Appreciate that. But there are many other people that listen to this and say, you know what? I don't get to go to a game very often. I got some tickets. A friend of mine got tickets or whatever. So where do I park? Well, you can go to healthstate.com and look for that. It tells you where the parking lots are. Have a pretty good idea where to go. And listen, there are places on University you can park and pay cash and just kind of walk into the campus. And I would encourage you to do that. If you're a person that doesn't have a parking pass or you're not sure where to go, get on University. And right before you get to campus, there are some grass lots there you'll pay. And, of course, you're going to pay a little bit more, but you're right there by campus. You don't have to worry about that. That's a little traveling tip for you, too. And again, I don't want to come across as being real preachy. I'm just trying to help. There are a lot of people out here that are not season ticket holders, that aren't here every weekend that we have a sporting event. I think it's important that we all just kind of understand that we're all in this thing together. I'd love for everybody to be season ticket holders, but I know it's not practical. And so I want everybody to have a good time. I want you to have a good time. I want our single-serving ticket holder to have a great time too, because we hope eventually they'll become season ticket holders too. Come have a great experience with your family. And hopefully see a historic win this week. We hope to. I'm not expecting it, but we hope to. Final segment of the show brought to you by Portico. I've told you guys before, if I was moving to Starkville now, Portico is where I would move. Absolutely would. I love the place I'm in now, but I'm out here in the sticks. I'm a few miles from town. It would be kind of cool to be right there by campus. 1.1 miles from campus. That's how close it is. You could run to campus. If you're a jogger, I guess we just call them runners now. If you're a runner, you can go do your evening runs, your training runs on the Mississippi State campus. How cool is that? You don't even have to drive. Just run to campus. Have a great time. Run around the beautiful expanses of the Mississippi State University campus. Really cool thing. Go out there to Chadwick Lake and run a couple laps. It's on the best side of town anyway, right? It's important to understand that too. Now, if you were thinking of moving to Portico now, you're out of luck. You're not going to be able to get in right now because every house in Phase 1 has been purchased. And how wonderful is that? Phase 2, construction's about to get going. 3 lots in Phase 2 have already been purchased, and those folks have picking out a floor plan. And that's the best thing about it, too. Many of you have always dreamed of having a new home. You're like, I'd like to have something new that hadn't been lived in. It's brand new to us. It's unique to us. Well, you give our friend Brooks Bryant a call. You buy your lot, and then you can go ahead and pick the floor plan for your home prior to construction, right? How many times have you go out and you buy a house, you think, yeah, I love the house, but. Well, see, that's the thing. If you're involved in that construction process, there's not going to be any buts. You're going to kind of understand that, hey, this is exactly what we want. We got what we wanted. That's a really cool thing. It's a great position to be in. So let me encourage you to do this. Give my friend, your friend, Mississippi State friend, Brooks Bryan, a call. Give him a call. Let him know what's going on with you. And so, and maybe we're not ready to buy today, but say we just want to gather some information. He's happy to provide that for you too. Brooks, a great guy. 601-416-8075. That's right, 601-416-8075. Give them a call today. If you lose the number, you can message me on social media, and a couple people have, and I'll give you the number, and you can get some information. And maybe you're just kind of in the fact-finding phase right now anyway. Maybe we're just kind of thinking about moving. Give Portico your first opportunity. And, that's the thing, too. You don't necessarily have to go through a real estate agent to kind of get your questions answered. Brooks is a Bulldog, a former Diamond Dog, cares about Mississippi State, part of a great group that has brought this great residential development to Starkville. Again, right off campus, you turn off 82 on a 12. It's the very first right. That's how close it is. It's great. Make Portico your next move. All right, let's talk a little bit about, we did some, I talked about some Alabama stuff the last time we played and that sort of stuff, and kind of how things shake out for us in ball games we played. And I want to talk about another great win in Mississippi State history with Alabama. All right, let's talk about the 1957 Mississippi State Bulldogs. It's going back a few years, right? I recently interviewed Charlie Weatherly, who is a gem. Oh my gosh, Charles Weatherly is such a gift to Mississippi State. Wonderful man, recently inducted in the M-State Club Hall of Fame. I love talking to Charlie. I've had a chance to go and visit with him and his group a couple times and speak, and he always makes me feel like a bigger deal than I am because that's who he is. That's the kind of person that he is. And so Charlie was on that team. Your quarterback, Billy Stacy, future NFL player there. Tom Miller, Gil Peterson, Bubba Trammell, Molly Halbert. You've heard that name a few times. Molly Halbert was our leading rusher that year, 76 carries for 386 yards. Willie Daniel also went to the National Football League. Willie Morgan, Bill Schoenrock, James Barnett, Jack Batey, Robert Collins, William Olmerg, and of course Charlie Weatherly, Ned Brooks, P.L. Blake, John Benji, I'm sure I'm saying that wrong, or Benj, maybe, I'm sorry if it's wrong, Kelly Clark, Lavelle White, Jack Benson, Jimmy Dodd, Willie Drayton, Sam Lathan, Bobby Tribble, and J.E. Logan. Those guys are part of that 1957 team. But what's interesting, too, about that team, we had had some lean years. We really had. We had had some tough years. But things were kind of turning around for us. It's interesting, too, we were in the middle of that marred in that awful losing streak to Ole Miss. But 1957, Wade Walker was the coach. Darrell Royal it was his predecessor and had put together back-to-back 6 and 4 years. But Wade Walker comes along, kind of picks up where he left off. And to give you a little history on Wade Walker, too, a lot of people don't know a whole lot about him. But came from the University of Oklahoma. Was our coach for 6 years, also was an AD. Began his coaching career at NC State as an assistant, was an assistant at Texas Tech, then came to Mississippi State to coach the offensive line, and then was promoted to be the head coach in 1956. After his coaching days were done, he became the AD while he was still coaching. He gave up coaching to stay on as the AD, and then left and returned to Oklahoma to be the athletic director there. And so there's a quote attributed to him. It's rather interesting. I had the reputation of being the laziest man of all of our calisthenics drills, but I was chain lightning compared to him. So you get warm enough out here anyhow. So he wasn't real big on that sort of stuff. But that 1957 team, again, kind of looking back at what we had kind of leading into that, the 6 and 4 years with Darrell Royal before he left, and of course went on to fame there at Texas. 1956, we were 4 and 6 on the year. In 57, though, we put together a pretty good campaign. 6-2-1, and kind of looking at some things too. Here in the SEC that year, it was a little different time, right? But Mississippi State finished 3rd in the SEC that year. Auburn wins the conference. Ole Miss is 2nd. State is 3rd. Florida is 4th. Tennessee is 5th. And so our final record, of course, 6-2-1. Now Tennessee was 8-3 that year, but 4-3 in the conference. I don't know why we played just the 9 games. Some other teams obviously played more. But one of the reasons we played less games is we didn't get to go to bowl game that year, which I'm going to talk about a little bit more. But what's interesting about this particular season, let me run the numbers down for you here. So we played Memphis State. Remember I told you guys Memphis used to be a really good team. Back in the 50s, not so much. But we found a way to win that game, kicked a late field goal to put it away, to beat Memphis 10-6 at Scott Field. We go on the road and lose at Tennessee 14-9. It's a really competitive game, to say the least. Then we rout Arkansas State 47-13. We go down to Gainesville in the swamp. It was called Florida Field back then. Beat those guys 29-20. We head over to Tuscaloosa, and we beat them 25-13. Now, here's the thing about that Alabama team. They were not good. I mean, they were absolutely not good. Just looking at some numbers for those guys, it's pretty crazy to look. It's like we're so used to Alabama kind of rolling over everybody, right? That's what we're used to. We've kind of grown accustomed to that. So Alabama that year won 2 games. They went 2-7-1. They beat Georgia at their place, and Georgia was 3-7 on the year, and they beat Southern Miss. That's their only 2 wins. They had a tie to Vanderbilt early in the year. That's it. They were dreadful. And we went over there and beat them at their place and beat them pretty good. I think it's pretty safe to say. 25-13 in front of 28,000 people. The next week, we drilled Tulane 27-6 in Jackson. I know we wanted to play in Jackson back then, but I don't know why you play the Tulane game there. Less people attended that one than they did the game in Starkville. And then we go to Auburn. And again, Auburn really good that year. We lose 15-7. And we actually played them at Legion Field in Birmingham. What's weird, too, to think about, back in the 50s, a lot of people don't know this. Like Alabama would play in Tuscaloosa, in Birmingham, and Mobile. They kind of moved their home games around to make it easier. Could you imagine having to pick 3 spots and deal with that crap? All right, so then we go to LSU. We beat them at their place 14-6. And then we tied with Ole Miss, which I think in many respects cost us a lot. We tie 7-7. Both teams are ranked in the top 15 at the time of the ball game. Ole Miss was number 7. We were 13. Or maybe they were 7, we were 13. And didn't work out good for us. It's like, Mississippi State did not have the political clout back in those days that we do today. And you say, well, Steve, I didn't realize we had it. Yeah, we do now. Wasn't always like that. Mississippi State was still in many respects kind of considered secondary. It was Ole Miss because most of the state legislature was educated at University of Mississippi. And so there was a lot of self-preservation involved in all that. There wasn't a lot of people going to step up and guarantee ticket sales for us to go to a bowl game. They would for Ole Miss. And not that they had to do it a lot because, all these state legislators and people like that wanted to go watch their team play. And so the Maroons, despite the fact that we finished 3rd in the SEC that year, we didn't go to a bowl game. Now, looking at the ball games for that year, there were only 7 back then. It's not like it is today where if you win 6 ball games, you're almost guaranteed of an opportunity to play in the postseason. There were 7 ball games. The Cotton Bowl, which had Navy and Rice. The Orange Bowl had Oklahoma and Duke. The Rose Bowl had Ohio State and Oregon. And there was some conference affiliations with that. Ole Miss played in the Sugar Bowl and just destroyed Texas. The Sun Bowl had Louisville and Drake. You mean to tell me we couldn't get in there over Drake? The Tangerine Bowl had Texas A&M Commerce and Southern Miss. And the Gator Bowl had Tennessee and A&M. It's crazy you think about that, right? How does that happen? How does that happen? How do we get left out? Now, you can understand Oregon a little bit. You can't so much understand Louisville and Drake. And so Mississippi State doesn't play in a bowl game, but we finished the year ranked 14th in the Associated Press poll for the first time since 1942. That's under Alan McKean, right? So we had finally achieved a little bit of notoriety on the field, but we did not have the political clout that a lot of other schools did. And some would say, well, we didn't travel well and that sort of stuff. And the bottom line is bowl games back then were not about achievement. They were about economics. And as a result, Mississippi State kind of got passed over. We had not been to a bowl game since 1940. You don't think there was some pent-up demand among our fans and our students to say, you know what, I'll go to a bowl game. Just give me an opportunity. Well, we were denied that opportunity again until 1963. We talked about that on the show before. And we beat NC State. We talked about that NC State week. But here's the thing, too, is we didn't help ourselves because we were not a consistent winner. And so it's like, there's a part of me that says, hey, well, this doesn't happen very often for Mississippi State. There's a chance they're going to buy a bunch of tickets. But also, too, you don't really cultivate a lot of, fervor within the fan base when you don't win very often. So it's like, okay, well, sure. So we didn't have a huge fan base. We had our students that were rabid, but we didn't have a lot of, by and large, sidewalk alums. And you begin to look, and here's what happens after that 14th ranked season in the AP poll, which was great by our standards. 6-2-1 was a great year. We got 4-2-1 in the SEC. That deadgum lost to Ole Miss. It's crazy. I guess it could have been us in the Sugar Bowl, right, if we won that ball game. Wade Walker then goes 3-6, 2-7, and 2-6, and then finally his final season 5-5, and he gives up coaching to stay on as the AD. And then Paul Davis becomes the head coach, and we begin to put some things together. But again, these winning seasons kind of few and far between. 63, the only winning season under Paul Davis. He never won more than 4 games outside of that year. Charlie Schauer takes over, and we really kind of bottomed out in the early years of the Charlie Schauer years. Charlie has just one winning season, and that's in 1970, a 6-5 season. And begin to think about that. I mean, it's like you have back-to-back coaches that combine for one winning season apiece over a decade. Think about that, 2 winning seasons in a decade. We lived through that, through the 2000s for a while, right? And even then, we had 2 bowl games, 2000 and 2007. Bob Tyler comes in and really changes things. Really changes things. And Bob recently, of course, inducted into the M-State Hall of Fame. Very grateful to Coach Bob Tyler. But that's when things began to change for us. But I wanted to kind of pay tribute to those Bulldogs of the 1950s because that team that went over there and beat Alabama, we hadn't beat Alabama very often. But that team that beat Alabama was a really good Mississippi State football team. And obviously they did not get the credit for what they richly deserved. They didn't get the bowl game. They did get a final ranking, and I guess it's one of those things we kind of have to kind of reconcile ourselves with. But the fact that some teams that we played, and to our own, to be fair, we lost to Tennessee and tied Ole Miss. So in many respects, I guess we kind of controlled our own destiny. But you begin to look at some of this stuff too, and you kind of scratch your head about it. But it just kind of goes to show you how far we've come. That a team ranked 14th in the country did not get invited to a bowl game despite finishing 3rd in one of the best football conferences in America. And I want to thank Charlie Weatherly and all those guys that did such a great job to represent Mississippi State when we weren't getting a lot of respect. And it's a different day and time today. But thank you for your contributions, Charlie. I love you to death, and all of your teammates and all the great things that you guys have done to help Mississippi State athletics. And, of course, Charlie has stayed on for years and years and years and worked with the Bulldog Club and the Foundation, the Alumni Association. Just anywhere that there has been a need at Mississippi State, Charlie Weatherly has been true maroon. So, Charlie, thank you and all of your teammates for your contributions to Mississippi State athletics. All right, we're going to get out of here. Longer show today, more to talk about, obviously. But I think it's important, too, that we always recognize our Bulldog greats before they're gone. And that's one of the things I love about doing the M Club stuff and being able to help out with Joe Ayup and that group, too, because what they're doing to honor our Mississippi State athletes those causes are very noble. And, we're probably behind a little bit. We just started doing the gala a few years ago, and I hope that we can make that a bigger event. We'll kind of get caught up a little bit here. But, and I've read some things, too, here as of late. People say, well, what's the criteria? Anybody can nominate a player for consideration to be inducted into the M-State Club Hall of Fame. You can go to the website, say M-State Club Hall of Fame, and you can find it, and you can nominate a player. And then the membership votes on it. We don't get to vote, and it should be that way. There's a fraternity among the players that have worn the maroon and white, pay their dues. They should be the ones to decide that. It shouldn't be just a popularity contest. They should do it. And I think there's no better people to handle that aspect of honoring our former players, because they're players that many of you may not have known just because of the fact they didn't make a lot of headlines. It could have been great players for us that are worthy of recognition. All right, well, that's going to do it for today. Thank you guys so much, man, for your support of the Boneyard. And so many of you have already went out and bought books. Thank you for doing that. You can go to dogpilethebook.com today and pre-order a copy of Dogpile. It'll be signed. If you want to personalize, you have to put it in the notes. Don't message me. Put it in the notes because I won't see your message on the signing day. And while you're there, you can get signed copies of Flim Flam, Alpha Dogs, and Stark Villains. If you're looking at Blooms of Oleander, you can find it through your local bookstore or through Amazon.com, BooksandMillion.com, or BarnesandNoble.com. 4 months, still on the bestseller list on Mississippi Reads list. Thank you very much for that. And if you're looking for Stark Villains gear, and it seems like all the time people are messaging me, where do I find it? Very easy, StarkVillains.com. Get some hoodies and T-shirts today. So many people said, hey, Steve, I've got a friend of mine. He loves the Boneyard. I've been thinking, but do you have any Boneyard merch? Well, we hadn't done a Boneyard shirt in a while, but you can get a Stark Villains hoodie or Stark Villains tee. They'll be happy to have that. A lot of people think about that, and then like, oh, I'm going to get one of those. And then they see me like, dude, I forgot. Where did you get those? StarkVillains.com. Very, very easy. Listen, we're back on Friday. We'll preview the weekend. I hope it's a great week for you guys, and looking forward to you guys being on campus. And again, if you're thinking about making plans to come up, go ahead and make the call because we're going to need you and your cowbell here if we have any chance of beating Alabama. But until next time, let's all live our lives in a way we'll make more friends than enemies, and people can see a difference in the way we live.
Susan, it's so great to finally be able to get together again.
Oh, it sure is. And I really appreciate you picking up the bill.
I'm happy to. I've got the extra cash. Since we've all been driving so much more again, I've been using Get Upside, the free gas app that pays you cash back for every gallon of gas you buy.
Wait a minute. Are you saying you actually get paid cash when you buy gas with the Get Upside app?
Yes, up to 25 cents a gallon, cash back every time I buy gas.
Does that actually add up to anything?
Some months I make $200 to $300.
Wow, that's serious extra cash. I'm downloading the free Get Upside app now.
Download the free Get Upside app now in the App Store or Google Play to save up to 25 cents a gallon when you buy gas. Use promo code PHIL for a 25 cents a gallon bonus on your first tank. That's up to 50 cents a gallon on your next fill-up. You can cash out anytime to PayPal or an e-gift card for Amazon and other brands. Just download the free Get Upside app and use promo code PHIL for a 25 cents a gallon bonus on your first tank. That's code PHIL.